Welcome to Talking Research, a nice little lunch and learn series we have going to help people better understand the wonderful research happening around the state of Nebraska. Today, I'm super excited to have Dr. Charles Wood with us. He's a Lewis Layer 3M University Distinguished Professor of Biochemistry at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He's an internationally recognized researcher in molecular virology and HIV/AIDS epidemiology. And I am just so excited to have him here with us. We have a lot to learn today. Dr. Wood, you are an expert on viruses. You've been doing extensive research on HIV/AIDS in Africa for a very long time now, and you've done a lot of other wonderful things here at the university as well. The top of mind virus on people's minds today, of course, is the one causing COVID-19. And what a lot of people may not realize is that virus is actually called SARS-CoV-2, when put that note in there. Can you start by just telling me a little bit about your work in Africa and with the current pandemic?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. It's really my pleasure to be here, to be able to talk to you and the group about our work and about viruses, which is my passion. So yes, absolutely right. And people confuse about what COVID-19, they think it's a virus. Actually, it is not. COVID-19 is a disease. It's a SARS corona associated infectious diseases. Basically, it's the symptoms that hospitalize people. But SARS coronavirus or 2 is the real virus. It's the second virus similar to the SARS virus that was discovered causing the SARS disease several years ago. And also similar to a virus found in camels, which is in the same family. So they call it the SARS coronavirus 2, which causes COVID-19. So just people need to be clear that they are not vaccinated with COVID-19, but they are vaccinated with SARS coronavirus 2. And that's very important and not get confused. Yes, we've been working in Africa for a long time, for over almost 25 years with infectious diseases and more specifically with HIV/AIDS. And when we first started, we were in the midst of the pandemic of the HIV, I guess, epidemic in Africa, and people are dying left and right. And maybe 30% of the population were HIV positive. I work in Zambia, which is in the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, very hard hit with HIV/AIDS. And we're seeing people, when we first started there, people basically, it's a death wish when you have HIV or diagnosed. So it's very, very sad. And you're losing the entire young generation. And things are a lot different now with the treatment, with the antiretrovirus regimen, which is working very well throughout the world. It waited a long time before those cheaper treatment was available in Africa, but it's basically almost more than 10 years now they're available, and it's very widespread. So we're seeing basically it's not a death wish anymore. People are living or surviving with HIV and AIDS, and fortunately, the prevalence of infection is going down. It was about 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 individuals were infected when I first started. It's very devastating, and they eventually all died. But now it's down to around 10% or less in the population that are living with HIV. So things are quite different. There's a lot of optimism, and the economy is booming, and which is in contrast during the peak of the AIDS epidemic. But unfortunately, Africa is living with many infectious diseases. As you know, these are re-emerging diseases. We hear about Ebola and many other things. Zika, all these things originated from Africa because of the zoonotic, basically jumping from wildlife to human beings, to us. So like HIV was originated from chimpanzee. And so a lot of these primate viruses can jump host, and not even primate, but we can see the bat viruses now that jump host from bats into humans, and that's causing the COVID-19. and causing the SARS and the MERS and all those other coronavirus diseases. So we have we've done a lot of work over there in terms of training and research and building up research infrastructure. And so we're always interested in things that affect the population there, including this COVID-19 pandemic. And interestingly, even up to now, when you open up the Johns Hopkins COVID map, you see that Africa is much less than the rest of the world in terms of the COVID cases or even deaths at this point. We're seeing pockets of high incidence of infection and deaths, like in South Africa. Mm-hmm. But in general, they are still much less affected than the rest of the world. And the first case was discovered in April 2020, almost a year ago. But still, given the concern that a lot of people have, because Africa's poor, healthcare infrastructure is bad, maybe it's a younger population, maybe the climate, all these factors we don't know, may be playing a role in minimizing the impact of the COVID.
Yeah, maybe the government is in the pandemic, a lot of concern about it just ripping through the population in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were very worried at the beginning it's going to be another AIDS picture again, but fortunately, and it's not. And of course, scientifically, we're very interested in finding out why. And I mentioned earlier that they do have a lot of infectious diseases going on. Maybe the population somehow, their immune system is tempered, or they have some type of protection against all these new agents, including this coronaviruses. So, and we know that they have a lot of human coronaviruses floating around, and maybe exposure to these similar to influenza, even though different strains, but have some type of protection.
So if someone maybe had a different SARS, an earlier SARS, maybe they were more immune to this one?
It's possible. Similar coronavirus, bats are very common in Africa. And so they could have seen other bat viruses jumping holes and been exposed. So we have some kind of cross protection. So that's what we set out to test almost, I would say, 6, 7, 8 months ago. Because we have collected a lot of specimens and samples from Africa prior to the pandemic from patients, AIDS patients included. So we test whether they do have cross-reaction or antibodies, basically. You know, antibodies are things we develop to protect against disease when we get vaccinated. So we went out to test for the presence of SARS coronavirus 2 antibodies in these samples collected prior to the pandemic. So there won't be any COVID-19 at that time, several years ago. And it turned out we developed assays and that we can test everything in-house. And it turned out that indeed, about 15 to 20% of the population do have cross-reactive antibodies against COVID or SARS coronavirus 2. And compared to the US, we have tested some individuals we collected from blood bank in Nebraska. They were less than 1%.
Wow, so a significant difference in the number of people.
It's a bit different, very obvious. So they've been exposed to many things, including coronavirus family members. And of course, the immune system may be somehow reacted or tempered, not reacting so vigorously against COVID-2 infection. And that's the problem, because the immune system is hyperactivated, and then you get problems, so-called inflammation. You're all over-inflamed and causing the disease. So maybe they've been exposed to many things. The immune system is tolerized or used to this type of infection, and maybe some cross protection as well. So
we have one question online asking how much of that COVID map of Africa is underreporting. You suspect there's some of that happening?
It's possible, and there are countries that even deny having COVID. But in general, the African country leaders are very sensitive, so they will make sure that these are as accurate as possible. And actually, I have information on the ground from our colleagues in the hospital. They don't see the cases we see in the US, even the peak of the pandemic. They have a second wave recently, but that second wave is gone now. They don't have vaccines yet. So there's something else going on. So maybe this type of cross protection or the immune system is somehow working well to protect them against other infectious diseases. So
there
that's
is for sure a different level of infection there, though.
Exactly. Yeah, but of concern is they may be selecting for variants. And we heard it now recently, the South African variants are popping up everywhere. And maybe our vaccine is not as effective against some of these new variants. And so far, so good. They are still cross-protected for vaccine, so take it whenever you can. But eventually, we might need a third vaccine that can target some of these variants, and people are working on it. We might need a third shot, and I expect that's going to be coming. But basically, we'll be ahead of the game. But in any case, by doing this, we'll find out how we can better protect ourselves, and what are some of the protective factors against not only African, but people all over the world. And we find it very interesting, and we continue on this work. And now looking at actually COVID patients over there. For those that have protection, even though they get infected, are the diseases more tempered? So that's why we're ongoing in our lab, and we've published some of the papers already, and hopefully we'll have more information coming out.
So has most of your research just fully switched over to this, or do you?
No, this is only a minor portion of our lab. Yeah, a lab got slowed down, even shut down because of the university shutdown. But we managed to do work. We developed our own assays and for research, and we can test for virus. We can test for so-called neutralizing or protective antibodies. We can test for the presence of antibodies and presence of virus. So everything is set up in the lab on the side. And while our main work is still going on infectious diseases, HIV/AIDS, and AIDS-associated diseases like cancers.
Tell me about your ongoing HIV/AIDS research.
Yeah.
How you got started and where you are now.
Right. Yeah, we're still going and we're evolving. As I said, we're changing. The whole HIV/AIDS field is changing because of the antiretroviral viruses that people are taking. So they're less death, which is great. But there are still millions, 30-something million people over the world still carrying the virus. They're not cured. So and their immune system is not normal. I mean, basically, HIV is a virus that affects the immune system. It causes immunosuppression. So many people are living with the virus, even though they're well. The virus are being suppressed, but the immune system are not totally normal. So we're seeing other diseases coming up as we live longer, or the infected individual live longer with HIV and compromising immune system. We're seeing early aging, cardiovascular diseases, and many other things, and diabetes, all kinds of things. And on top, we're seeing cancers. In these people, cancers that are a higher incidence than non-HIV infected individuals. So, and neurological diseases as well. So we're focusing on cancers, malignancies, and how HIV interact with a lot of other cancer-causing viruses, and also understanding how HIV interacts with other viruses and immune system, and how it causes the neurological diseases. So these are some of the ongoing work, not ranging from acute HIV/AIDS diseases to these slow, chronic diseases associated with HIV-infected individuals. And of course, one of the things we are trying to ask now is, what happened to HIV-infected individuals if they're infected by COVID?
Wow.
And also, what happened to these cancer patients infected by COVID? Because these people are being immunosuppressed by cancer treatment, and they also inflammation, because cancer causes inflammation. So this is one of the focus that we also working on in parallel of HIV. So it's a lot of things going on, a lot of things we want to do.
That is a lot. And we're going to discover so much in coming months and years about how SARS-CoV-2 has impacted lots of different people with different pre.
Exactly. Yeah, different population, correct.
What was it like setting up those labs in Africa that are now, been there, like you said, for over 20 years? And
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
get people halfway across, like on the other side of the planet?
Right. Yeah, it is challenging because when we started over 20 years ago, we work in the major teaching hospital in Zambia, and we also actually expanded our program to Tanzania, another cancer center, about 6-7 years ago. So when we first started in Africa, and as you can imagine, that being so naive, I have never been to Africa. The first time when we first started, and we have some research funding that we want to get started. We're going over there. There's no research infrastructure, no laboratories, no office space. And in the hospital, we met the managing director of the hospital. He said, "Well, doctors are here for treating patients, not doing research." And funny enough that she is now one of the proponent for doing research in Africa. So things have changed quite a bit. And we built research infrastructure, including clinics, laboratories. So it took a while, but we're very fortunate to have NIH support, especially the Faculty International and the National Cancer Institute been supporting us for all these years. And hopefully they'll be continuing to support us. So we have been very lucky, and we have a lot of projects and a lot of support from them, from the institute. So, but they have really been phenomenal in helping us to continue to build the research infrastructure over there, including training of personnel. That's very important because you only can work and collaborate if you have the right personnel that are willing to work with you. So many of our trainees, we have trained over 60 trainees over these 20 years, all from the University of Zambia, and almost all except maybe 2 had gone back to the country, and many of them had continued on the research, become administrators and researchers. So these are basically our collaborators, and some of them have been successful, and we need to continue to train more, but not enough. So that takes a lot of patience and support and funding to be able to do that, and we hopefully continue to be able to continue for many more years to come.
So do some of those folks come here to Nebraska for some training?
Oh, yes. Exactly. So they come here for, some of them have actually degrees. They got master, they got PhDs, they got MPH. So in Nebraska, both at UNL, at UNMC. So we are partnering together, and we train all kinds of people, and they're going back. Some of them are, most of them are MDs already. We train them to be researchers and the second generation of researchers, so that the program can continue. And we're also hoping to have lead investigators coming after us to be our second generation of leaders that can continue the research. So that's very, it takes a lot of time.
How often do you go there?
Yeah, before the pandemic, I have not been there for over years. The last time I went was 2019, maybe in September. So we need to go there, but of course the travel, the band and all the stuff. And I usually go there 3 or 4 times a year and spend a couple of weeks there each time. And we also have students that actually stationed there for the summer or for semester. And so we like that, to have our students to be also exposed and to excite them about international research as well. So it worked both ways. So they come over here, and some of our students go over there. And so it's really been very rewarding to see that you get people excited about research and about Africa and how they can do to help.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about that importance of relationship building. I mean, we see it now even when it comes to building vaccine confidence in different communities here in America and having the right people reaching out to communities and building
Right.
that trust in science. Tell me a little bit more about that.
That's very, very important. The human trust is really what builds, is the foundation of collaboration. And you heard about, I hear about all the time about so-called uh, US scientific imperialism. And that happened, it's still happening. These big institutions bring their own research team going in there. They do a few years of work because they got money, and they just use the locals as someone that as workers, and they do everything. They bring the entire team over there. They set up their own facility. They really don't empower the local, and that had created a lot of problems. And you don't blame the locals because they're being used as pawns. Prawns for the studies. So, and it created a lot of issues. And we encountered some of that when we first started. But with all these years, we continued the partnerships and people we train, and we build trusts, and we can do things that they know that we will benefit them, because we look at them as equal partners, and collaborators, not as research subjects. And that had built a lot of relationship and trust over the years. We know the ministry people, and we get things done and support very easily. As a matter of fact, for Zambia, once they were stopping all export of samples, specimens from Africa, and rightfully so, because I know some researchers go in there, they take the patient samples and then leave, and without letting the local know. So, and that got caught. And so they stopped all the export of specimens and all the stuff for every institutions and every country. And we actually managed to get exception before CDC did. And so CDC has access to help them. So that's kind of trust we built over the years. And I hope that trust can persist and with the second generation continue.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you also work with UNMC and how your work may or may not work alongside Howie Gendelman and his HIV, erratic, like the use of CRISPR and some of the things that he's been exploring?
Yeah, so I think they are part of our training partners because we need mentors, we need senior people, and like Howard Gendelman, Howard Fox, and those people. And Howard Fox, as a matter of fact, was in Africa with me, and some of the pathologists from UNMC were in Africa too. They were helping with training of people, conducting workshops. So it's a freeway partnerships. And we send people from Africa to UNMC to get degrees. Not so much a PhD yet, because most of the PhD are here at UNL, but MPH and even PhD in biostatistics and epidemiology. So it is a very active ongoing collaboration, especially with the Nebraska Center for Virology. UNMC is part of the center as well. It was part of the center. So we have very close collaboration and research as well as training.
Terrific. What would you say you're most proud of at this point in your career?
Yeah, I think the most proud of the relationship we built, that we trust each other, and most proud of the second generation of researchers that we trained. We have people that we trained. They're now able to stand on their own, and we have a trainee that actually received the first so-called the K award, K43 award, similar to some of the award that's given to the US young and upcoming investigators. This is called I guess the Future Leaders of the Country Award. My trainee from Africa was the first in the country to receive that. And also my trainee in Tanzania was the first in the country to receive that. So we hopefully have trained our trainee well, and then they'll be able to continue with continue with leading the the collaboration leading the research in their own country. That's what I'm most proud of. They are really able to continue my research interest beyond me and along the line of research that we started. So that's really what I'm most proud of.
That's amazing. You've planted a seed and now it's growing into this.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yep. Hopefully they'll be flourishing and there'll be more seeds coming and it will be continued for generations.
What do you hope is that final outcome of the research you're doing?
Well, I mean, the final outcome that we really want is to understand things that will benefit the Africans and that will also benefit the world and the US people as well. Like the emerging diseases, so-called zoonotic viruses and diseases that jump to host from wild animals to humans and to other things as well. So that's what we really want to find out, what we can ultimately benefits the African, our partners, and that we will also benefit from them by understanding and how we can better protect ourselves in future diseases outbreaks like the SARS coronaviruses. Why the Africans are less affected? What are they doing right? And what are we doing wrong? And that will benefit us and the rest of the world. So I think that's the ultimate outcome, is to benefit them and us and the world.
What, as we come up on the bottom of, come up on 12:30 here, what advice would you have for students interested in pursuing research careers like this?
Yeah, I think really the sky's the limit of what you want to do. I've been telling my students this is the job that I want to come to work. I don't have enough time to work, rather than I have to come to work. And it's not the same every day or every minute. And things popped up that rouses your interest, like SARS coronavirus. I said, okay, well, I'm going to start looking into this from what I learned from other things. So you can really pursue your own interest and get support to do that, hopefully. I mean, there are also parts not good because you have to try to get funding, but there's always room for the best. And that's something that everyone should remember, is the ability to pursue your own interest.
That's terrific.
And it's not money. It's not money.
It's not money. It's not
yeah, some people maybe they will pursue the interest in making a lot of money, but this is different. You cannot bring the money with you, but it's proud of is to be able to see your work recognized by other people, and also be cited many years beyond yourself. And that's something that money cannot leave behind. Yeah, maybe they remember you as a billionaire. But very few of those. So,
well, we appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences and your wisdom with us. Thank you so much, Dr. Wood.
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's really fun. Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, and I will let viewers know that we have a couple of other events coming up in 2 weeks. We have another Talking Research April 1st with Dr. Donald Coulter from UNMC and Children's with the Pediatric Cancer Research Group. And then next Wednesday, we have a panel on women in science in Nebraska. So you can go to our website, nebraskacures.com, or here on our Facebook page to find more information on those events. Other than that, thank you and have a great day, everybody.